Okay, so we're checking before, and we've done some of this. This should look vaguely familiar to you because we've talked about this somewhat. The other philosophy is it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. This basically says, if we get an error, how do we deal with it? Right? So, yes?
If an error happens, you will have to find a solution to that error.
Yeah, that's easier to ask for forgiveness. And I'm going to show you how that looks in code because there's a special set of commands that we can use to handle errors after they happen so that instead of crashing your program, the program continues and gets itself back on track gracefully. Now, here is what that same problem looks like if I, instead of using look before you leap, I ask for easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, EAFP, right? So in here, I have a while true loop, same thing. I'm asking the user enter a number. And then you see two new words that we haven't played around with yet. Try and accept. For every try, there must be an accept. No exceptions, no pun intended. Okay, so try means I'm going to try this thing that I think could potentially produce an error. So this code, int number equals int str number, and then break, this code block, we're going to try it. If anything in that code block produces an error, it will immediately jump to this line and do what is under the accept. So, for example, if somebody enters a letter or enters TWO instead of the digit 2, it will execute, they'll enter it here, and then it will go to this line and it'll say, okay, let's try and convert that to an integer and put it into this variable. This is going to produce an error. So it stops here. It does not break. It stops here, goes to the exception, and says, that's not a valid number. It's still in the loop, so it goes back up to the top and says, enter a number. So it does the same thing, but in this case, it's actually producing an error. The error actually happens. But because it's in a try block, it will just run the exception. Instead of failing, instead of crashing the program, you actually get a program that continues running. So I'm going to take this, pull that code into here. And so let's run this without the try and accept for a second. Okay, so int number equals int str number. I also don't need that. Print int number plus 5, let's just say. So we're going to enter that plus 5. So I run this, enter a number, oops. Sometimes PyCharm likes to help out by importing things that I don't need. So helpful. Thank you, artificial intelligence. What could possibly go wrong if we connect artificial intelligence to all of the weapons all over the world? I don't know, probably nothing. Ever seen war games? All right, so anyway, enter a number. There we go, works like a charm, adds 5, prints it out. But if I run that and I say 2, I get the ugly error, right? I don't want that. So if I'm using this philosophy, where I am, oops, deleted something I need. Here, let's fix it. Man, my indentations are all screwy right now. That's not fun. There we go. I can make it behave. I know, right? Every time you use technology, your technology's going to be out to get you.
Unfortunately, that's always has been the issue since the 1990s.
Oh, since there was technology, period. STR number equals, yeah, seriously.
No wish we could do that.
Nope. If you work in technology,
You're gonna have to
you're gonna pay. Yeah.
unless you're smart enough to combat against it.
My goodness. See what indentation does to us? I didn't think so. Doesn't match. My gosh. Here's the easiest way to fix it. You just got to go all the way back to the basics here. That.
Seems as if it's not helping much.
There we go. Once you get it right, you'll know. That's why you use tabs instead of spaces, by the way, because sometimes it's visually really hard to see the difference between like this and that. Sometimes it's really hard to see. So using those tabs helps you. All right, so back on track here. Let's run this. Enter a number. If I do that, oh, I got rid of my printed out. Better make it work. Print. Let's go int number +5. Okay, so there's that. If I enter 5, I get 10. Super advanced calculations happening here. If I run that and I put 10 TEN, it does not give me an error. Except it does. I'm just handling the error. That's what this is called, error handling. So this actually produces an error. This actually produces an error. And when it does, it jumps straight down to here and it runs whatever is in the except. But because it never gets to the break, it's going to continue in that loop until I give it what I want. So that's the same thing. So this is the same thing as this, look before you leap, but just a different approach. Both approaches work just fine for this. And in fact, in most cases, you could use either or. What I would recommend, though, is learning to use both because some cases are easier with one than with the other. You kind of get a feel for that as you get into programming some of these things. But you want to understand how easier to ask for forgiveness than permission works, as well as look before you leap.